So I've always been a strong advocate of establishing measurable success criteria for pretty much every project that I work on. The digital world just offers a wealth of metrics to track, from conversion rates to lifetime customer value, all the way through to things like engagement and user experience. It's an absolute data goldmine. But recently I've been reminded that adopting metrics can be a dangerous game, especially if you become too obsessed with them. So what we're going to do in this particular episode is explore dangers, four key dangers, in fact, of using metrics and how to navigate them effectively. And we're going to begin with measuring the wrong thing. You see, I'm currently working with an insurance company that have fallen into this trap. They're tracking the number of quotes that they send out rather than the number of actual sales. Consequently, they're making decisions that are going to boost the number of quotes, but sometimes at the expense of real conversions. How does this happen? Well, it's because of our tendency to measure what's easy to measure, and over time to assume that the only metrics that actually matter are the ones that we're measuring. And you need to be really wary of this trap. While measuring something is better than measuring nothing, avoid placing too much weight on easily accessible metrics. They're just part of the equation, and the metrics that you can't easily measure, things like lifetime customer value, are often, in many cases, more important. But let's talk about the second peril of poorly chosen metrics, and that's focusing on short-term gain. Quarterly targets are really common, but they lead to a danger of short-term thinking. If you're fixating on the quarter's next sales targets, you might be prioritizing costly customer acquisition over more sustainable strategies like customer retention or word-of-mouth recommendation. The third trap of metrics is misreading the data. When we're focusing on a small number of short-term metrics, it's easy to misinterpret what's happening. You might miss seasonal variations or fail to see the overall picture is actually healthier than you might think. I once had a client who pulled a feature after just 3 days because it caused a dip in a single metric at launch. There was no time for understanding the full impact of whether it was having a positive or negative effect in other areas. They just jumped to a conclusion based on the limited data. And that comes to the very last point that I want to raise, which is overreacting to changes. Metrics should guide our decision making, not dictate it. Our metrics shouldn't be reduced to simplistic if-then statements. If metric goes up, then good. If metric goes down, then bad. We need to make informed judgment calls, take calculated risks, and have the nerve to give ideas time to succeed. For example, it's common for website changes to receive an initial negative reaction as they disrupt people's procedural knowledge. But if you give people time to adjust, the results often improve. So how do we harness the power of metrics while avoiding these pitfalls? Well, here's my advice. First of all, use a range of metrics. Work with your team to establish metrics that encompass conversion, usability, and engagement. And that will give you a much more rounded, complete picture of what's going on. Number 2, allow time before reacting. Agree up front on how long you're going to wait before responding to the data after implementing changes. Expect short-term negative impacts and plan accordingly. And number 3, align metrics with overall goals. Challenge short-term metrics by asking whether they truly support your organization's broader objectives. Implementing these strategies isn't always going to be smooth sailing. Many organizations are deeply entrenched in their thinking, and changing established metrics often fall outside of our direct control. However, by laying these foundations early, we create a reference point for when things go awry. We can revisit these conversations and adjust course as needed. Remember, metrics are a powerful tool, but they're not the end goal. Use them wisely and they'll guide you towards meaningful improvements and sustainable success.